but it is what it is. So I saw a bunch of people posting different things, different takeaways in the group meet. What were some of your favorite things? I love that talk. I'm pretty sure it was Sean who said that every time he watches that talk, he gets like a new appreciation and love for it. What were some of our biggest like takeaways from the video?
I really liked how he said we attract who we are, not who we want, or something like that. I thought that
That's
really
awesome.
hit on a different level.
Right? And that kind of like meshes with another quote that I heard. It's you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life what you are, right? So like if you want positive things and you want, just exciting things and growth in your life, you need to be the person that creates positivity and growth and excitement. What else do we like from that video?
I would say successful leaders discover what other people are good at.
That's an awesome one too, right? It's like I was listening to a video the other day, and it was another manager, one of the best managers in the company's history, and he said that what he realized is that he needed to find people that he was excited to work with, and that they didn't need to fit the conventional role, but find a role that best fit them, and that was how he created success at the highest level in his organization. What other things do we like from the video?
The different levels of leadership and how to be an effective leader, you have to know where you are so that you can strive to the next one.
Yeah, and one of the things that really like stood out to me the first time I watched it was you're in a different level with every person in your organization, right? So like there might be someone where you're at that, that fourth level, and then some of the newer people that you haven't built the same type of relationship, you're still at that first level, and it's about how can I get to that next level with each person. So can you guys see my screen? The pick right now, the pick 1 to 3 things.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're a little past that. Obviously, things have not gone 100% according to plan so far today. I appreciate everyone's patience, and personally, one of the things I'd say is, it's only downhill from here, right? Like it's only going to get better than the internet. I mean, hopefully, I don't want to jinx anything, but you know what? Maybe that's a good way to start it so that everything just gets better. And one thing that I really want to emphasize is in terms of where you guys are, this is the place to be. And the opportunity is only getting better due to innovation and development in our programs. And I wanted to start that before any of the other things. But I'm a firm believer in that. I actually did a little audible, and I added a couple new slides to my slideshow because I saw this on my Facebook yesterday. And someone posted, there was a chart on, I guess, CNBC posted this chart, the budget breakdown of a 25-year-old who makes $100K a year and is excellent with money. And someone on my Facebook posted that and said, in what work does a 25-year-old make $100K a year? And for me, I was like, I'm not gonna lie. I became a district manager when I was 23, right? My first 8 months, I opened in 2014. My birthday's in August. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I made 100K when I was 23. And I went and I looked, and if you look, I was wrong, right? My 23 into 24-year-old, I only earned 96,658. That was my first 8 months open as a district manager out of school in my first 8 months of district. And then I said, so if you notice, this is 2014. It's January 1st through December 31st, 2014. So that year in August, towards the end, I turned 24. So I looked at the next year, which was 24 to 25. And if you look, yes, I hit that plus some. So if you actually average out those 2 years, I did a little better, right? And I made over $100,000 every year since then. And one of the things that I would say is I wish I took the opportunity more seriously early, because even though we've been able to ascertain a certain level of success, there were missed opportunities. And to me, there is no better opportunity right now the executives have been really talking about, not only is there no better opportunity, but there's no safer opportunity for a young adult to have. And one of the things that they've been talking about is Amani and Sean and Thomas and Zach were on a call the other day. And one of the things that Al talked about it, Kate talked about it. They're like, never has in the entirety of the entire company of Vector, never have they missed a check, right? Never has someone not gotten paid or their check bounced or whatever. And they're in a pandemic or in the middle of a lot of chaos. A lot of the times, that's when the company really steps up and the opportunity becomes only better. And to me, this is the place to be, right? We are just getting started as a division. This is our division's first leadership academy call ever, and things are only going to get better. And I know some of you have heard some of the things in terms of our divisional pillars, keys to success, but to me, this is where I really want to really hit on those. And so in terms of pillars that we're going to build our division on, the first one is can I mentality. Right. And I love this. I think it's an acronym. Is an acronym when you have like the beginning of words that equal something or whatever. I don't know if that's the right word, but CANI stands for constant and never ending improvement. Right. And it's that mentality of, how can I be constantly and never ending, have the mindset of developing more and becoming better. How can I always be improving and having the mindset of evolve or die. Right? If there's one thing that is consistent with business and life, it is that there is going to be change, right? And really the people that are the ones that are the most successful are the people that get in front of that change and they're constantly evolving and they're not waiting for things to happen, right? The second thing is integrity. Integrity to me is something that is so important, right? Integrity is really just the difference. So there's something called an integrity gap. Right. And the integrity gap is the difference between what you say you are going to do and what you actually do. Right. And obviously, nobody is perfect. Right. But our goal in life should always be to be closing that integrity gap. Right. For our words to be as close to our actions as possible. And integrity is something that is so important. It's honesty. Right. It's following through. Right. To an extent, it's the next one, which is accountability. And to me, that is so important for our division as a pillar for our division. And it's accountability to yourself, but also accountability to others, right? To me, the best organizations aren't the ones where just the let's say a sports team, just the coach holds people accountable. It's the ones where the players hold each other accountable also, right? Some of you may have seen there's a documentary that was on Michael Jordan recently. On ESPN, and I was actually going to make a Facebook status on this last night. For some reason, every time I watch, did you say I lagged?
No, The Last Dance.
The Last Dance.
Last Dance, yeah. So every time I watch a sports documentary, for some reason I cry. Like those get me like no other one. Like I don't know why. I love sports documentaries. I was watching the Last Chance U last night, but the Jordan one was such an awesome documentary because for anyone that knows, Jordan, basically, he won 3 championships in a row, retired from the sport of basketball, went and played baseball, came back and won 3 championships in a row. And his coaches, or his fellow players talked about his work ethic and determination and practice, and how he's the one who, well, Pippen was a leader as well, right? Pippen is a Hall of Famer, is a great player. But the reality was Jordan was the one that pushed people, and Pippen was oftentimes the one that was there to console people if Jordan pushed them a little too far. But they talked about, oh yeah, he cursed at us. He threw punches at some people. He pushed us so hard. And then one of the players was like, and he's the greatest teammate I ever had. Right. And the reality is when there's people that hold you accountable, not only your coaches, but your peers, that is something that makes everyone better. Right. When everyone holds each other accountable, they're accountable to themselves and each other. Right. The next thing is pride in everything you do. Right. So for me, when I started as a sales rep, I'm surprised I was here 9 weeks later, let alone 9 years later. But for me, my mindset was, if I'm going to do demos, my demos are going to be real good, right? And it's not always like working yourself the hardest, but it's working your hardest with everything that you do, to have pride in that thing, right? To have a pursuit of mastery, right? It's like certain people on our team are pretty good, but if you develop that mindset of there's another layer, there's another level, right? I want to master the phone. I want to master my demo. I want to master referrals. Like, that's that next level. And it's always hungry, right? Which goes into that next one for me. It's having a mentality of, you want like to be confident, but you never want anything other than to be humble, right? It's never arrived. There's always room to grow. It's always that next step. It's always, there's something that we can learn from everyone, right? Because the moments that we think we're good enough is the moment where we stop looking for ways to grow. And also, at certain times, we turn ourselves off from the ability to be able to learn from people that we can learn things, right? You can learn something from everyone. And it's humble, right? It's that always hungry, that pursuit of mastery, that pride in everything you do, never arrived, room to grow, right? Accountable to each other and yourself, following through on the things that you say, and constant and never-ending improvement, and looking for ways to evolve yourself and your business, right? So our success principles are competitive but always respectful, right? And I think that that's so important, right? Everyone loves humble people, but there aren't enough humble people out there, right? And we always want to win, but we're not better than anyone, and we always want to respect other people. The second thing is, to me, is like one of the biggest things for success, and it's a find a way mentality, right? It's how can I improve? What are the things that I need to do? Not like, these are my circumstances and this is where I am. It's how can I find a way to do this, right? It's win the day, right? And it's breaking things down and saying to yourself on a consistent basis, what does the best me look like today, right? It's eliminating mediocrity in anything you do, right? Quote that I love is, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? How you do one thing is how you do everything. And it carries over to different aspects of your life, right? Because if you're just somebody who bullshits, right, then you're a bullshitter, right? And that's just how it is. But if you're somebody that finds a way and gives it their all, and is trying to be the best version of themselves on a daily basis, that's someone who eliminates mediocrity, right? It's someone who's winning each day, right? Creating things. It's developing yourself personally, not only professionally and financially. It's bringing your best when you're working. It's having a mentality of consistency is the catalyst for success, right? Anyone could do something once or twice, right? Anyone could have a big week or a couple big sales, but what are you doing on a consistent basis, right? And also, having a mentality of complacency is the enemy of consistency, right? So every time I have the opportunity to move forward, right, I shouldn't, like, obviously we all need time to rest, right? Yesterday, if you texted me or called me, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't answer you because my only day off other than yesterday was Mother's Day, and I needed a day off, right? So I'm not saying you need to work always, but I'm also saying, like, you don't need to work hard for a day and then take two weeks off, right? It's, what are the things that I can on a consistent basis be moving forward and growing myself and growing my business and impacting others. So as a new division, right, I went over this with a bunch of people. As a new division, we have basically the opportunity to build whatever we want, right? My job is to create leaders in terms of either office managers or leaders inside of offices, right? And this group is the first foundation of success that we as a team are going to create for years to come. And what we're building is 2020 is about creating, right? So for those of you who don't know this, actually, which is probably all of you other than like Lily and Yada and Sean, so in terms of division manager, there's 3 steps. There's division leader, there's division coordinator, and then there's division manager. And really, division leader is what I was this entire summer. And a division leader is kind of is like really still like almost a glorified district manager. And oftentimes that person needs, you know, a year or so to prove themselves in that role in order to get promoted to division coordinator, to actually be a division coordinator is like real, like pilot office. Technically this summer, Earl was our division manager because I was the division leader. And because you guys have been so badass, Earl told me 3 days ago that I'm getting the promotion to division coordinator September 1st, right? Which means that we will start actually showing up on the divisional reports. And he's like, he said something along the lines of like, legacy's real now. And I wanted to be like, legacy's always been real, right? Like we've been a division. We've just been waiting for you guys to find out and catch up, right? So 2020 is about creating, right? 2021 is about elevating, right? It's about taking that next step and having, you know, I think about, imagine where we could be a year from now, right? Imagine where we're going to be in 8 months when next summer starts compared to the 4 offices we had this year, right? 2022 is about competing in terms of inside of our region, starting to take that next step up. 2023 is when we dominate the region. And then 2024 is when we break records, right? And what does that look like? So our goal this year, in terms of creating, was 4 offices to start the summer and going for $2.5 million plus. And the cool thing is we are right where we need to be for that, right? We're at about $1.7 million, 1.6 million with over 4 months left, the best team we've ever had. Right. Next year, 2021 is elevating, right? So obviously we have the Morris office and the Middlesex office, which are full-time offices. Our goal between branch and district offices is to add 8 more for next year. And it's to go and create another million on top of where we finished this year, if not more, right? 2022 is competing. It's having 15 offices, right? Some of you might have notice that conferences, it could be the DMC day, it could be SC2 where they introduce some of the leadership team. We have a small leadership team right now. And one of the things that you'll hear from me often is all that means is endless opportunity for people to step up and get roles that they might not have been able to get so quickly because we're building something new, right? Like that should excite you. So 2022 is 15 offices between our full-time and our part-time offices, going after a $5 million a year. 2023 is about dominating 20 offices, going for $7.5 million that year. And then 2024 is about being the first division in company history to have a $10 million a year, right? And what's in it for you? It's endless opportunity, like I just said, right? It's the opportunity to be a part of something special. To me, that's like one of the things that always drove me as a manager is, I don't know if any of you have played sports or been a part of an organization or a club that like competed at the highest level, but I've always felt like when you're a part of a team like that, right? I always feel like that is something that you take with you for the rest of your life, right? I always feel like, you know what I mean? Like when I've been a part of shitty teams, right? And I've been a part of awesome teams that compete at the highest level. And those teams that I was a part of that compete at the highest level are things that change you, right? It brings up that next thing. It creates growth at an unnatural rate, right? Like becoming more of a leader and putting yourself in a position where you take more responsibility is something that will force growth upon you. So for some of you, when I talked about when I went district, the biggest thing that changed in me was when I was a rep, I thought about myself, right? I was like, you know, like I've enough money in my bank account where if I don't wake up for a morning phone jam, whatever, I'm only affecting me. But when I became a district, it wasn't about my success. It was about creating success for other people. And that was something that I took so real and so personal that it forced me to want to grow, right? If I didn't wake up for a morning phone jam, back in the day, people drove to the office. And there was a time where I overslept for a morning phone jam. And there were like 3 kids sitting in the hallway outside of the office. Cause back in the day, I used to lock the office. I still locked off. I'm just kidding. I don't lock the office. That was the worst feeling I ever felt. It was the last time I was ever late for a morning phone jam. right? And it was because other people were accountable to me. I was accountable to their success. And that created growth at a rate that was unnatural. It made me want to grow so that I could help others grow, right? What's in it for you is the ability to know what it's like to build something special from absolutely nothing, right? If you want to know what it's like to build a business, like this is the place to be, right? Right now we are at the ground floor, and you could be the reason that we hit these goals, right? Like you could be the catalyst and the reason that we hit these goals. And I'm going to talk about it later. I'm going to talk about what it's like to really have that mentality of I'm going to make an impact. But every single person here could be the reason that we do something special. We could jump years ahead of pace, right? Like if people really stepped up and said, I want to lead, I want to make an impact, I want to take ownership, we could go from 2.5 million to 5 million and skip on 3.5 million, right? And that's the thing that is the most exciting is we have the opportunity to do things that no one has ever done because we're just starting, right? There is endless opportunity, right? So we talked about the roles and the opportunities. Obviously there's sales leader, right? There's CSP, there's assistant manager, right? And I broke assistant manager into two parts. There's the assistant manager, more like an AMIT part-time sales. And then there's sales manager, right? Which is what Thomas is now, what Yada and Sean have been for the summer. Sales manager obviously also coincides with branch or with pilot manager, pilot sales manager. There's branch managers, there's district managers. And one thing that I would say to you right now, I don't care if you are afraid of branch or afraid of district. You should put in your mindset right now, I'm going to prepare as if I'm going branch or going district, right? And the reason that I say that is because if you develop that type of mentality, then what's going to happen is you're going to be more intentional, right? You're going to have that constant focus. You're going to have an elevated thinking. You're going to find ways to grow. And what happens too many times that I see certain people say, I think I want to be an assistant manager, right? And what they do is they use that as an excuse to limit their thinking, right? They're like, okay, well, I don't know, there's not going to be as much, on me because I'm going to be an assistant manager. And every time an opportunity comes up for them to take a shortcut, a lot of the times they take that shortcut, right? But what happens when someone says, I'm going branch or I'm going district, that person might not do it next year, but they start living that role today and start actually knowing what it's like to thrive as a branch or a district. They develop that mentality beforehand. So when they step into the role, they're prepared, right? So that they start thinking at a different level. And then what happens when that person starts thinking at a different level, the worst case scenario is they wait 2 years to go branch or district, or they don't go branch or district, but they live it, they live the growth, and they make an impact at such a higher level in a support role than they would have if they were preparing to play a support role the whole time. Does that make sense? Right? So it's somebody saying to themselves, I'm going to start acting like a branch or a district. And imagine if the 30 people on this call right now started acting like branches or district, where we would be by the end of the year, right? Imagine that. The only thing that would limit us is a bunch of people say, you know what, I want to stay a new sales rep, right? And they continue to act that way. But imagine if we had 30 people living that and creating that, the success that we would create over the next year. Imagine what our Leadership Academy class would look like a year from today when we're doing our second ever first prep of the year, right? And hopefully our Wi-Fi is working from the get-go, right? But imagine what that group would look like if everyone took it and said, you know what, I'm going to make things, I'm going to make it personal, right? Our success as an organization is personal to me, and I am going to be one of the catalysts that create that success because I'm going to prepare at the highest level, right? So what are our expectations of leaders? It's on time, right? It's someone with a positive attitude. It's someone who's prepared, right? Who's accountable and dependable. Someone that follows the programs and does things the right way. Someone who's coachable, and someone who always brings their best, right? So just to hit on some of these, I said it the other day, to me, someone who's on time I'm sure a lot of you who play sports, and probably even those that don't, it's like on time is late. And what's the quote? It's like,
you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Right. And it's like, be on time. And I'll skip ahead to two. Prepared is also part of that, right? Because if you're not prepared, you're not on time, right? You're late. So it's how can I be there and show up the right way? Second thing is positive attitude, right? And for a lot of you, when I was talking about, probably all of you, when I was talking about Leadership Academy and me finding the right group of people, one of the things that I said is my first summer as a manager, I wanted to keep everyone, right? And what I realized is that I didn't hold people accountable as much. And like, we just had a bunch of people, but everyone there's no one that is neutral. Everyone either adds to an organization or takes from an organization, right? And what I mean from that is, I mean that from the attitude that they bring, the energy, the way that they make other people either think bigger or smaller, everyone is either like, I forget who I was saying this to, but someone was like, there's no neutrons, right? Everyone, actually, it might have been Alex Harler, I don't know. Everyone is either an electron or a proton, right? There's no neutrons other than, I guess, Jimmy, right? But the reality is, I want positive people that help other people think the right way, right? I want people that are growth oriented, right? I want people that are accountable and dependable. I think that that's one of the most important things if you look at it from the perspective of a professional, right? One of the things that every professional at the highest level is someone that is accountable and that you could depend on, right? I think that that's really important. And that's a great thing to ask yourself, right? Am I being dependable? Am I someone that people can depend on? Am I someone that is accountable to my peers and myself, and that is holding my peers and myself accountable, right? Am I someone who follows the program and does things the right way? To me, a leader is someone who goes the way, knows the way, and shows the way, right? I don't know if Maxwell said it in that one. That's a Maxwell quote. But the reality is, I want people in our leadership organization that are doing things the right way so that we can point to them and say, this is how it's done. And new people can just follow their lead, right? I want someone who's coachable. I think that that's so important in terms of success. I forget who I was talking about it with, but we were saying, I was like, I'm sure you've been a part of a team or an organization where there were people that were so skilled and talented that just weren't coachable. And, there were people over the course of my life that were way more talented than I was, but they just weren't eager to learn. They weren't coachable. Like, you couldn't tell them anything that they didn't want to hear. And to me, that is like one of the biggest limiting things. And then it's just effort, right? In terms of bringing your best. When you're working, when you're doing things, be the best version of yourself, right? And a bunch of you have heard me say this, but vector looks good on a resume, but vector at the highest level is something that can't be matched, right? So you should work yourself to those highest levels, right? We have opportunities here that are unparalleled to any other opportunity a young adult can have, right? And I'm not sure if I wasn't able, because of Wi-Fi issues, to watch that video with you. But one of the things that Maxwell talks about is he talks about the moment you enter a new organization, you're working yourself out of your role. You're either working yourself into a promotion or into a termination, right? Because you're either doing things that are working you up to that next level, or you're working yourself out of that business, right? And you should develop the mindset of, I want as much responsibility as possible so that I could grow into the best version of myself, right? A mindset that I love is, hey, I might not be here forever, but I'm going to work out some of my kinks and some of my weaknesses here so that I don't take them with me to my next spot, right? And the way that you do that is by taking on more responsibility and developing that growth mindset, right? You're saying to yourself, I'm going to prepare as if I'm running my own office, so that way I can make the biggest impact in any role and max out my growth, right? To get the most out of the next 8 months, you need to act like you are taking on the most responsibility. right? You need to start acting like a branch or a district now so that you can live what it's like beforehand. In the worst case scenarios, you can make a huge impact in that support role. The mistake or the trap, like I said, that I've seen too many times is people thinking that, oh, I want to be an assistant manager, then use that as an excuse for why they should stay where they are and not taking their next level of growth seriously, right? So taking that next level of growth, what does that look like, right? It looks like being intentional, right? So I would say to yourself right now, where do I need to grow? Right? Where do I need to go to grow? Right? And to me, it needs to be intentional. It needs to be a constant focus, right? You need to create growth habits, right? You need to elevate the way you're thinking and grow consistently. And once you know where you need to grow, you should be developing that growth plan today, right? You should be working on that. And you should be saying to yourself, where are my biggest areas of opportunity? Where do I want to grow the most? And then breaking it down and saying, what can I do to grow in this area? Or what I would say probably what's a priority, right? Like you should pick that one thing that you want to focus on and get really good at it, right? Over the next month or month and a half, and just really focus on one thing, right? A lot of the times people, they spread their focus too thin. But if you took each month or 2 months and you focused on really getting good at one area, that's what would create the most growth for you. And then once you feel strong on that, you go to that next place and you work on that, right? But you need to know where you want to grow, and you need to start developing that growth plan today so that you can be consistently moving forward, and then make it intentional, make it a constant focus, right? And just continue to ask yourself great questions and put yourself in situations where you could grow. And if you're not sure exactly what that area is, sit down with your manager, an assistant manager, or a peer, or your parents, and say, hey, right? Like, I think that an outside perspective is one of the best things that we can get, right? In terms of growth. Sometimes when you're inside the picture, like you're too close to the frame, right? Like I'm sure everyone has seen like a picture where you're too close and you can't see the whole thing. You don't have the right perspective. But when you step back and there's someone who has a different perspective on it and they can tell you what they see, that to me is one of the best ways to really get a good view at where you need to grow. And so a Brian Tracy quote that I heard a few years ago that I loved is he said that feedback is the breakfast of champions, right? So how can you get more feedback and constructive criticism from the people around you that maybe see some of the things that are in your blind spots, right? So we're going to talk about some of those things a little bit later. My first topic that I want to talk about, though, is critical thinking and problem solving. And to me, this is something that I've actually been, at first I was going to hold off on doing this topic until Friday. But to me, this is something that ever since I started thinking of this topic, I've been really, really excited about like discussing with everyone. So the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to go through some of the things that I think are important, some of the basics behind this. Then I'm going to give you an office example. And then we're going to go through a couple different working like opportunity, like a couple different rep things and brainstorm together as a group. But to me, so the other day I showed you how I was planning originally, right? Which has definitely not been a strong suit of mine. Planning is not like my biggest strong suit. I believe that critical thinking is probably one of my strongest abilities, right? So to me, this is one of the most important traits that someone can exhibit to grow themselves and create success. And really the reason for that is when you're critically thinking and you're focused on solving problems, you're someone who is growth oriented. So, I mean, Sean brought up the problem solving thing. I would say it might not even be problem solving. It's tweaking to like improve yourself, right? To grow yourself and your results. So when you let circumstances control you and your results, what happens is you make yourself a victim, and you can't tell me one story about a successful victim, right? You could tell me stories about people that were put in adverse situations that found a way to take control and make shit happen, but you can't tell me a story about a successful victim, right? And that's just the truth. There's too many times where people get frustrated with the situation that they're in, and if they spent their energy and their time and their focus on figuring out ways that they could change their situation, they would be in a much better situation than sitting there and just feeling bad for themselves, right? So to me, it's about taking absolute ownership and total control of everything that happens to you, right? It's taking absolute ownership and total control of every situation you are in. So for example, if a rep on our team is not as successful as they should be, I blame myself, right? I'm gonna tell you right now, if someone on our staff or on our team is not as successful as they should be, I blame myself, right? As long as obviously if that person is trying, there's certain times, one of the things that I've learned, and this was like a hard lesson as a new manager, was that you can't help everyone, right? Like you can't do it for people, but if people put effort forward and they're not seeing the results that they deserve, I take that personally, right? For example, and this is the difference between me as a new manager and a more experienced manager, but if one of our assistant managers or someone on our staff makes a mistake, at first I used to get very frustrated with that person. Sometimes I still do, but one of the things that I always try to remind myself is one of the reasons that they made that mistake is I did not prepare them properly, right? So my mindset is I take everything very personally, right? And I think that is so important because that gives me control of my business. It gives me control of my results, right? If I didn't have that mentality, then things would be happening to me, not for me or because of me. So how do you do this, right? I'm going to say two things. The first thing is taking your ego out of it, right? Which is something that's difficult at times, to take your ego out of it, is to say, okay, well, a decision that I made was not the right one, right? Or I need to do this better, right? And it's once you lose your ego, it's not thinking things from an emotional perspective, only thinking from a logical perspective, right? Like logically, you need to sit down and you need to ask yourself a few questions, right? You need to ask yourself, what are we doing well? What aren't we doing well? What could we tweak, right? What are the things that we should stop doing or start doing, right? So if you're not doing something well and you say to yourself, like, this is what it is what it is, whatever, you're leaving your success up to other people. But when you take complete control, you find ways to improve, right? So I'm going to give you an example, a real office example for this. So this summer, so in terms of running an office, there's something called the launch percentage, right? It's the percentage of people that show to the first day of training that end up launching from the third day of training. And in terms of our office, we have always had one of the highest launch percentages in the entire Northeast region. If people show to day one, in the past, it was like 80 to 85% of those people launched from training, right? Obviously, like there's certain people that I would say one thing that we love about the job as a manager that I love is that I can offer the opportunity to certain people that other businesses might not offer them an opportunity. And that my mentality is there's certain times where I offer someone the opportunity to come to training, and then I use training as an extra like interview. And there's certain times where after the first day of training, I tell that person I don't think the job's for them. That help happens, right? And that is what it is. But this summer, we were, I want to say the beginning of June, maybe, 2 weeks in a row, we had a terrible launch percentage with a few of our sharpest training groups, maybe ever, right? We had, in Morris, we had lots of, it was PRs of people on our team that we really wanted PRs of. It was people like Bella, James, a few other people. We had like 2 weeks in a row where we had 25 kids in day one, and like more than half of the training group quit or didn't show to the second day of training, right? And I would say that is extremely deflating. Especially, I don't know if you've ever felt like at some point of your life, you were like so close to getting to that like next level. And it was like, oh my, once we get there, it's smooth sailing. And then like things just keep happening to hold you back, right? We were so close to getting that next level as a team. We had these amazing groups 2 weeks in a row. And literally some of the sharpest kids in those groups quit. And I would say that for probably a day or so, I was super low energy. I was like super bummed, right? And to me, this is the difference between me and other managers. There's a lot of managers that would have blamed it on switching things to virtual, right? And they would have been like, oh, well, that's just how it's going to be with virtuals, right? Or they would have just complained. They would have let it eat at them. They say it is what it is, right? And a lot of people would have let it take them away from their excitement and decommit them from their goals, right? Everyone's had this. It could be in terms of a rep. I would say it's similar to a bunch of, reschedules or cancellations or tough phone jams. And what I tried to say to our staff is I made a decision that not only is this not going to be the reason that we fall short of our goals, this is going to be the reasons that we make the adjustments that we need to make to improve our virtual programs and get to that next level, right? And that was just, was it difficult to get past that because of the work that it took to build those training groups and what could have been? Yes, but I also wasn't going to let that hold us back, right? So I said that is going to be the reason, right? And I tried to draw energy from that. This is going to be the reason that we improve and that we get to that next level in our virtual programs. So what do? Right? I made it a mission for about a week to work on figuring out the causes. So the first thing that I did, I would say, is I reflected by myself. I reflected with our staff. I reached out to a couple other managers, right? That was the first thing I did. The second thing that I did was I actually reached out to a couple new reps. I reached out to TJ and I reached out to Emily. And TJ had launched like 3 weeks before. Emily had launched the week before. And I'm like, hey, I was wondering if like you could give me some feedback. This is like what's happened is we've had some really sharp kids in day one, and then a bunch of kids haven't shown. You have a different perspective on this than I do. What are some of the things that you feel like it could be, right? And then another thing I did, the third thing I did was I actually reached out to a bunch of the kids that quit, right? So I put together a text message that was like, hey, I'm really sorry to bother you or whatever. My goal with this text isn't to try to recruit you back. My goal is to improve. And obviously, like, there's a reason that you came in for the first day of training and ended up not coming to the second day of training. There are things that we could do better, and I really want to get better. What is it that we could have done better? Like, what was the reason that you didn't come, right? And for me, that was my mentality, was who's going to give me a better perspective than that person, right? And I would say I probably texted 20, 25 kids, and I probably got like 10 responses back. And literally every single one of them was positive. Only a few of them actually like really were things that I found could help, right? I would say some of them were just like, yeah, I just didn't think it was for me. And I'm like, there's more to that. I would love to know what it is, right? So I said to myself, we can't control everything, but we can control a lot, right? And we can make adjustments. We need to make adjustments. And we're going to do some things new, right? If you saw the amount of adjustments we made to our virtual program this summer, it would probably shock a lot of you. Like, you've seen a bunch of the demo stuff, let alone our training, our interview, all that stuff. And one thing that I also said to myself, and this was me thinking like critically, like logically, not emotionally, is I felt like the majority of the shifts needed to be made in our first day of training, maybe a couple of shifts to our interview, but mostly to our first day of training. And the reason for that was they showed up to the first day, right? And then they didn't show up to the second day, right? So we needed to figure out what we can do better in day one. We also need to figure out what we could do either like in the interview was what can we do to better set them up for the first day of training, right? So the issues that I found that were the most prevalent were, one is there were certain times where people said that they weren't expecting so many people on the first day of training, right? Like they got on the Zoom and there was a point this summer where all 4 offices were running training together, and there were like 73 people on day 1 of training. I heard 1 or 2 people say that, and I realized that it wasn't personal, right? It wasn't as personal, especially as like when we were running in the office, it was maybe 10 people there. So that was one thing that I found. The second thing I heard was that the training was long, and I'm going to address all of these in a second. The training was long. The third thing that I heard was like that people felt like it was a big time commitment. The job was going to be more of a time commitment than they had the time for, right? And then the fourth big thing that I heard was that people weren't necessarily comfortable sitting down with family and friends. So those were the 4 biggest things that I heard, right? Too many people, like there were a lot of people, it wasn't necessarily as personal, that the training was long, the job was a bigger time commitment than they expected, and that they weren't comfortable sitting down with family and friends. So what did we do? The first thing that we did was, for a lot of people not as personal, we split our divisional training from 4 offices on day 1 to Morris and Sussex on day 1 and Middlesex and Mercer on day 1, so that it was just a smaller group and it could be more personal, right? And that was something that immediately cut down the size of our training. And I thought that it was great. It allowed, the managers to really get to know their kids more and run more talks on day 1, make it a little more personal. The second thing that we did was, for a longer training, one of the things that I said to myself, at first I wanted to cut down on the length of training, right? And what I realized though is it's not the length of training, because they knew the time commitment. It was that we're not building enough value in our training so that they realize the next 2 days are worth it, right? Does that make sense? Where it's like, if they know the time beforehand, what's happening is they don't feel like they're getting value out of that time. So if you look, this is actually my slideshow for the first day of training. And one of the things that I added in was I added in a slide for the value of training, right? And it was really what I went through was what to expect for the 3 days, right? And then I went through the value of training, what you're going to get out of training, why this is worth your time, right? I added in phrases like, yeah, when I was in training, I remember first thinking to myself, wow, 3 days. And then at the end of training, being so grateful that someone invested that time into me, right? And I wish when I was younger, I developed the mindset of investing in myself and my growth, right? So obviously training is just one time, but it's a college accredited professional business training seminar, and go through some of the things that they're going to learn over the few days, right? So I wanted to do a better job at building value for them in the time that they're investing in the job, right? So that's something that we need to do a better job at, right? Was build value in the training so that they realized that 2 more days was not a big deal and it was worth their time, right? The next thing that I heard from multiple people was multiple people said, I just don't have like a ton of time. And if I'm doing this, I don't want to let the team down and not be able to like give it my all, right? So I realized that we needed to stop. We promoted fast start very heavily, very early, right? So it was like, yeah, you should be going all in as hard as possible, blah, blah, blah. And the people weren't like completely vested at that point. So we took out some of the fast start stuff from day 1. We eased back on that. And then I added one right after value of training, and it's called opportunity for everyone, right? So if you've gone through training since we edited this, you probably know like this talk, but it's basically like the rep position is more of an opportunity than a job. And that it's super flexible. We have people that work part-time, full-time, over breaks. We have certain people that, make 6 figures with a career opportunity in either management or sales. But no matter what your schedule is, something is always better than nothing. And life is about making progress, not finding the perfect situation, right? So it's a long-term opportunity to make income. Every rep plays their role in terms of the team's success. And no matter what type of schedule you have, it's a great opportunity for you to learn, to grow yourself, to develop personally and set yourself apart from your peers. So this is the opportunity for you, right? Because I wanted to just ensure people, hey, you don't need to go all in. you can still get a lot out of this position, right? I realized in terms of people saying that they weren't comfortable sitting down with family and friends, I realized that we weren't doing a great job on easing them into their names list, right? I added a slide on day one for like, get excited to see the people that you know. And if you have gone through training ever since I added that, I started telling a story or a couple of stories of people that I was afraid to sit down with when I first started. And like, it's really fun demos that I did. So I tell this story of my best friend's dad who hated me and how nervous I was to do that demo and like the realizations that I had. I tell a story about like when I ended up quitting my valeting job because I went out to Pennsylvania and I like had an awesome weekend. I did a demo with this girl, Kelly, and her mom, and we got drunk, and she originally, I asked for the order and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna get this galley set. And Kelly looks at her mom and she's like, Mom, we should also get one for the beach house. And I was like, Kelly, I love you, right? And I was at 30%. It was a $1,700 order. I made $500 drinking a 30-pack with Kelly and Kelly's mom, Susan. And I was like, literally, why am I valeting, right? And I realized that we need to do a better job at easing people into their names list and going through reasons why they should get excited about seeing people that they know, right? We took out some of the stuff in terms of their top 20 list from training, right? Right, 100%. And that's one of the things that I realized I needed to do that on day one, right? I would say we took out some of the stuff in terms of top 20 lists, right? Where we were doing a lot of top 20 senior best people on day one, and people on day one weren't necessarily ready for that. So we took that out. I realized that we need to be more intentional about the way that we finish day one, right? This is actually something that V brought up that I thought was a really good point. Is a question that I started asking myself was, what is the way that, how do people feel when they leave the first day of training? Right? And I hadn't asked myself that question because for a really long time, we ran 2-day training for 5 years. I didn't run 3-day training since 2014. And we had run 2-day training. We switched to 3-day because we didn't want to do like 2 8-hour days over virtual stuff. And I think that that was a good decision. But with a 2-day training, we phoned on day one. And if someone had 6 or 7 demos booked and they were halfway through training, they were going to launch from training, right? So like my mindset used to be, how can I get them 6 or 7 demos on day one so that they finish day two, not, how do I make them feel great at the end of the first day? Because they're not even a third of the way through, right? So what we did was I started asking myself the question of how did they feel leaving training, right? I realized that we were just rushing through the end and everything was chaotic, right? And I realized that we wanted to feel good and have a fun moment. So I added at the end, right? Welcome to the team. And I added the shit my pants video, right? So for those of you who has not seen this video by all right. So I'll play the video real quick. So new share computer sound. So for those of you who don't know, Morris Mayhem, our thing is Morris Mayhem, and all we do is ship, right? And so I always say to them, hey, now you guys are part of the team, and our like little mantra is all we do is ship. And I always want to, I never used to do this, but I think a cool way to finish the first day of training, now that you guys are part of the team, is seeing where that comes from. So.
Ship my pants. Right here? Ship my pants, you're kidding.
You can ship your pants right here.
You hear that? I can ship my pants for free.
Wow, I just may ship my pants.
Yeah, ship your pants. Billy, you can ship your pants too.
I can't wait to ship my pants, Dad.
I just shipped my pants, and it's very convenient.
Very convenient.
I just shipped my drawers.
I just shipped my nightie.
I just shipped my bed. If you can't find what you're looking for in store, we'll find it at Kmart.com right now and ship it.
So that became the way that we finished day one of training every week, right? Because I just felt like that's a fun way to finish the day, right? And those were adjustments that we made, right? What we did was we split our divisional day one. We built more value in training. We explained to them that this is an opportunity for everyone, right? We helped them feel more comfortable with sitting down with friends and family. It is exactly what Ash just said in the chat. She said there were a few people she was super nervous to sit down with. there's tons of people I was nervous to sit down with when I first started, but helping people realize that's not just them, and that like and understand that one is we're not going to force them to see anyone, and two is like what's the worst thing that could happen, right? And then just being more intentional about how they finished the first day of training, right? All I did, and we as a staff was I sat down and I reflected, right? I asked some questions to other managers and other AMs. I asked questions to recent reps that went through training, and I asked questions to like some of the kids that quit, right? And I found out what the problems were, what the issues were, and I figured out a couple of solutions for them. So this is what we're gonna do, right? I have 4 examples for reps for situations that reps might face that they might want to mend, that they might want to fix, the situations that they're unhappy about. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everyone like 2.5 minutes for each of these. And then we're going to share as a group things that reps can do to fix some of these situations. So we'll do one at a time. So the first one, right? Let's say I'm a rep and I'm frustrated because I'm not booking the amount of demos that I can book, right? What can I do? Everyone jot down some things. Don't post in the chat. All right. We're just posting in the chat. All right. So I'm going to give 2.5 minutes. So in 1 minute, I'm going to give a couple people the chance to share. I'm going to take 3 people, and then I'll give you my things before the next one. So if you have something to share, type in the chat, share or me or something. Cool. All right. So we will start with Jaden.
All right. So the thing that I put down is that if you're having issues trying to come up with or trying to like make calls and stuff like that, is to call your manager and do like a test run with them so that you can have an outside opinion and see like anything you could do better, anything you could add to it, stuff like that.
So you're saying one of the things is you could get better at the phone.
Yes.
Right? Get better at the phone approach and up your skill level so that when you speak to people, you book a higher percent, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. Amani.
Okay, so basically what I would do first, I would just give them words of encouragement, just basically saying like, yeah, sometimes it's not easy, but if you keep persevering.
Well, I'm saying this is you brainstorming for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I would do. And then after that, I would figure out what the problem is. So I'd say, hey, is it the phone approach? Or, oh, I've been listening to you phone. You don't sound that good. Let's work on that. Is it the rec approach? Because you're not getting as many recs as you should. So therefore, you're not booking as many demos as you want to, you know?
Cool. So one of the things I put down was you could get more leads by getting better at referrals. Right? Perfect. And then Ash. Ash, we can't hear you. Can you guys hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, my mic was off. So one thing that I put down, and this is something that's worked for me, is to make a consistent schedule for phone jamming, because I don't know if I've mentioned, but I do have a second job. So I'm out and around and back and forth all the time. So I try to phone jam. If I don't hop in the Zoom, I try to phone jam for 2 to 3 hours each day, even if I need to break that up into sections. And on average, I book like 10 to 12 demos a week. So it's just like consistency is a good part of progress as well, because you can't get better if you don't do something repeatedly. So if you're only phone jamming at the Zoom call once a week, you're not going to get better at the phone approach. And then as a result, you're not going to get book as many demos as you should be getting. So it all starts with really that practice.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I didn't even write, like I put get more consistency with phoning, because I think that what happens too many times is we have an off phone jam and then we wait a few days and then we have, 1 or 2 demos and like we never really build that momentum. Actually, you know what? So I'll do everyone who's on here. Kate.
So I had a couple things kind of just to add what everybody said, but for phoning, I always try and make sure it's like less than 3 days out, because usually people forget about it or reschedule if it's longer than that.
That's one of the next topics.
Okay. And then for the rec approach, focusing on the thought joggers and which ones are going to get you more quality recs.
Cool.
And then I love like the idea to like pay your siblings or your friends to get people's numbers. That's always a good
Cool.
one.
So that one is expanding your names list, right? Finding creative ways to get fresh leads, right? Right now we have getting more leads, getting better with referrals, more consistent with phoning, expanding your names list, and get better at phoning. James.
Yeah, mine were kind of all like mainstream along that. So basically, I had like 3 key questions that I would ask them. Is the first one would be, like ask them their goal.
Well, this is you. You are the rep that wants to book more demos.
All right, so I would ask myself then. I would ask myself realistically, how many demos do I realistically want a week? And then after that, I want to ask myself, how many calls am I making, right? Because not every time you make a call, you're going to book a demo. That's just how it works. So you need to have like a call goal realistically. Oh, so for every 3 calls that I make, I'm going to book a demo. If I want 12 calls, I need to have 36 calls for 12 demos in a week. And then after that, am I following the phone approach or like other stuff like, how do I sound over the phone? Do I sound energetic? Am I letting my mood get into it? Like you need to be there, not physically, but like mentally as well. Like, I just think that's like key.
Awesome. So make more calls, have a call goal, right? I would say that if you want to book 12 demos, you're going to need to book make way more than 36 calls. I would say the number I'd probably go with is 5 or 6 to 1.
No,
and
yeah,
the worst case scenario.
That was just an example, like realistically,
Cool.
for if you booked 1 for every 3, then
cool.
It
Devin.
Well, this is something that I brought up to you recently, which is why I wanted to share. And like one of the things that you had me start doing is like making sure that the person sends out the text immediately, like at the demo, and then calling your most recent people while they're still recent.
Perfect.
So that they know that they still remember that you're going to be giving them a call.
Perfect. So one of the things I wrote down was call your fresh leads as soon as possible. And this is a mistake that I've seen way too many reps on our team make this summer, is don't wait for permission to call leads. Say to them, hey, is there any way we could send that out today? And if anyone has any problems, you let me know. But I'm going to start reaching out tomorrow afternoon, right? Like the more you wait for permission to call leads, the more leads that you're going to have in like limbo that you can't reach out to, and the less effective you're going to be, right? So I always said, I never said like, I'm going to wait till you give me the go ahead. I said, I'm not going to call them for a day or 2. And if anyone has any problems, you can let me know. And if they don't have any problems, I called those leads. Perfect. All right. I feel like, does anyone have any that are different? Okay, so my other different ones for you are testing different text messages, right? Incorporating different text messages, maybe every once in a while throwing a round of voicemails for some of the people that you've called multiple times, right? Another thing is you can call from a second or third phone number, right? So that they're not seeing the same phone number over and over again, right? Sometimes people get phone number fatigue. So if you use the house phone or a sibling's phone, you'd be surprised how many people you get in touch with. The texting thing and the voicemails is big. And then also you could ask your current and or past customers for some help booking demos, right? Like you could sit down with people, ask certain people that you've got that you got referrals from that you haven't been able to get into referrals, and ask them if they could help you get in touch with certain people, and they could do three-way calls with you. They could send out some texts with you. Like if it's family and you're with them, you could ask them if they could make a call, like call their friend and hand the phone over to you. But there are plenty of creative ways to book more demos if you don't have the amount of demos you want, right? You could get better with referrals and get more leads. You could get more consistent with your phoning schedule. You could test out different text messages and see which ones get you the best results, and or leave some voicemails, right? You could call from a second or third phone number. You could find ways to expand your names list. You could have current or past customers help you book demos. You could get better at phoning, right? You can make more calls, and you can make sure that you're calling your fresh leads. You can make sure that you're calling your fresh leads and not like waiting to ask for permission to call them, just going out and finding ways to call them. So the other ones, I'm going to go this one first. So what if you are getting a lot of cancellations? What are things that you could do to help you if you feel like you're getting a lot of cancellations? I'm going to give everyone 2 minutes. All right, let's do it this way. Yeah, you should always reach out to everyone. All right, so we'll start with Zach.
Is that me or other Zach?
We'll start with James and then go Zach out.
Hey, Zach.
Okay, am I good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that I would do is if I was having a lot of cancellations, I would really try to instill, like, especially over the phone, like it's like the first time you're talking to this person, like you really have to instill how important it is to your goals, like trying to keep your schedule booked, showing them like how hard you're working, and like getting them to understand that every single demo that they book and the time that you're giving them and you're giving to them and they're giving you is really important and it can't be wasted. So like you need to establish like a lot of importance in that demo, so like to make sure that they're there as much as you are. The second thing that I would do is like to make sure you read the time and the day over and over and over again. Like it's super easy and it's simple. Like it's all on the phone approach. Like literally just follow the phone approach. Like they say it like 2 or 3 times. Like, oh, so I'll see you on Monday. I can count on seeing you on Monday at like this time and date. Like it's really important. Like for them to understand that. And then also like you have to be excited like over the phone, because if you're kind of like mellow about it over the phone, they're not going to be excited about it. What's going to, why should they show up to give you 30 to 45 minutes of their time? Like why, what's the point behind it? Like they have to be excited. They have to be wanting to do this, and you have to like really convey that over the phone.
Cool. So make sure that you share how important it is. Make ssure that they write it down. We're going to do one more, and then I'm going to just, because this talk is going over a little bit, and then I'm just going to read through a couple of my notes on other things. Zach.
All right, cool. So I feel like he said a bunch of things, but the main thing that I think he didn't say that I think I'm going to share as well is that you have to make sure that the person that you're talking to on the phone is excited to see the demo that you're doing it. So I watched like a video of like, I think it was like Stacy Barton or something. And she was like phoning whatever. And basically what she was saying is her rule of thumb is to have the person laugh at least 3 times during the phoning. I mean, it can be like stupid jokes. Like everyone knows like the highlight of Phone Gems is hearing Amani tell the jokes, right? And I'm going to guess that she doesn't get as many cancellations as most of us do. So as long as your customers are excited that that's something that they're looking forward to, right? If I'm like excited to do something, I'm not going to miss that, right? But if you're like, I don't really want to do it, like there's a much higher chance that, you just won't. So you have to make the person want to be it and want to see it and look forward to that time.
Perfect. I love that. So I wrote be fun on the phone so they aren't dreading the demo. Right. I also put if you are doing text reminders, stop doing them. Send out the email a couple hours before. Don't book so far in advance. Right. Like those are all really important things. So all right. So the next two, we're just a little behind. So I'll just share a couple of the notes that I wrote down. So I wrote getting in better networks. Right. The first thing is knowing exactly what networks you want to be in. Right? Knowing the surrounding towns, schools, organizations, clubs, etc. Right? Reaching out to people that that might be able to get you into those networks. It could be family or friends. It could be social media. It could be past customers. And then stressing the importance and the value to you in why you're looking to get into those networks and communicating it on every demo so that you can get a few leads and people understand how valuable that will be to you. The next thing I wrote down was for raising your average order, right? I wrote getting better at explaining the 5-pay and the trial, right? Getting into better networks, get more confidence in the pricing, learn the close better, get better at handling objections, and I wrote get into better networks twice because I like networking. Networking is good, right? I was actually at a wedding on Friday in Alpine at Rosie O'Donnell's house, right? And I was there, and one of the other people that was there with us lived like 7 minutes from there. And he was like, the next town over is called Hohokus, which is a good town, but it's not like a $7 million house that Rosie O'Donnell lives at, right? And the person one of the people I was with is a manager for Vector, is a Vector person who got married. And he said, I wish I knew how to network when I was in high school, because I was doing demos in like okay houses, but I wasn't doing demos in this, right? And he lives 7 minutes from there, right? And networking can be the great equalizer. So that is what I have for critical thinking and problem solving. The next person who is going to come up is going to be Lily. She's going to be talking about building your resume. So Lily, I don't see.
Yep, I'm all set. Hey.
All right, cool. I'm going to stop sharing.
Cool. Okie dokie. Let me just pull.
Lily, it says your network bandwidth is low. All right, Lily, you fix your Wi-Fi now. Can you guys? Yeah, I'm gonna mute Lily. All right.
How are you guys?
No, Lily.
We can't hear you, Lily.
Yeah, and it was lagging really bad.
Yeah. Can you guys still hear me, or am I still?
Yeah.
No, we can hear you just fine.
No, you
All
passed it to Lily now.
Yeah. Yeah, Lily, go restart your computer or something, because it ain't what we're looking for. All right. This is what we are gonna do. I'm gonna do my talk on finances. Darn Cricket Wireless. Yeah. So. I'm so confused at how Lily.
It's because that's
All
how
right.
she sounded because she kept breaking up.
All right, whatever. We are unsharing Lily's, and I'm gonna reshare. So you know what? Fuck it. I think it's the Russians right now that are trying to hold us back, right? And we're just not gonna let that shit happen. Like, not today. We're gonna figure out a way. So this is the next week, or our next prep is when we're gonna start the Dave Ramsey stuff. But I really like this video. I want to do this and then a light discussion on why I'm making an impact on your finances today and the importance of really getting things started. This is a video that I think is very, very good. And I'm trying to decide if I should send the link or just play it. So, what? Well, let's see. You guys tell me.
You may have heard that money doesn't buy happiness. And the person that told you that probably had a lot of money. But they aren't exactly...
Should I send you the link?
Yeah, send the link.
Yeah, the audio is
I'm
fine,
gonna
but the video's lagged.
All right, I'm going to send the
But they
link.
aren't exactly wrong. I think...
It is 10 minutes and 38 seconds. You like it? Yeah, I really like this one. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know if Zach's being serious or... I like him a lot.
Dude, I love him. He's so good.
Good. All right, cool. 10 minutes and 38 seconds. We're going to move on at 6:10.
I think what's closer to the truth is that having money is
All right. Let me know when we're done with like the good, like when you get to the, is this an awkward time to ask for money? Obviously we don't need to listen to that part. Is that where you guys are?
Yeah.
So no, he has awesome content. I at one point before the summer, before everything happened, originally was going to make a YouTube channel, and Nicole was one of the people that I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and she's like, oh, you know that I am a video editor, right? And I was like, I have no clue. And then Zach was like, you know, I do video editing, and I have $1,000 camera you could borrow. And I was like, oh. And then Sean was like, you know, I was a film major, right? And I was like, yeah, but you like Star Wars, The Last Jedi. So we're gonna go a different direction there. But I like that video a lot. I really like the way that he describes the retirement fund. He's like, well, fuck you, Brian. Whatever. But one of the things that he speaks about that is the most important, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is when he talks about compound interest. Right. So what compound interest is when you start getting interest on your interest. Right. So basically, in his example, he says $10,000 with a 10% interest. That means that first year you would get $100 interest. Right. So you go from 1,000 to 1,100. Right. And then after that, you get 10% on that. Right. God damn it, Zach. Zach's like 17, and he's like, I've done 15 years of research on my retirement funds, guys. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna believe Zach because I trust him. Basically that first year you would get $100 of interest, but then you would get 10% interest on that 1,100, which means you get $110, right? And what happens is over time, that just creates tons of momentum, right? So if you looked at this, this is $1,000 principal, right? No, the interest part with no compounding would bring you up to 3,000. I guess this is probably 20 years. And from the compounding interest, that is more than half of it, right? And obviously, I think that, or I know that the mistake that a lot of people make is they don't think about, okay, what is the impact that today could have on tomorrow, my future, right? So if you look at this, this is the amount of a dollar, right, based on the age that you contribute that dollar, what that would look like at the average age of retirement, which is 65, right? And it's $1 for every single one of these. But if you invest that dollar at 20 years old instead of 25, you have an extra dollar on top of that, right? If you invest that dollar at 20 instead of 30 years old, you have almost an extra $2 because you invested sooner, right? If you do it at 20 instead of 35, you're getting to the point where it's not quite double, but at 40, it is substantially more than double the amount of money that you get from what you put in because you put it in earlier, right? So I thought that this was a super powerful illustration, right, on why you should start investing today, right, even if you stop. So in this example, Jack invests $200 a month between the ages of 25 and 35, which means he invests a total of $24,000. So 25 to 35, he did $200 a month, and then he stopped, right? Jill invests $200 a month, so the same amount per month between the ages of 35 and 65. So Jack invests 24,000. Jill invests 3 times that. She invests 72,000. And at the age of 65, Jack has $280,000 or so, and Jill has $250,000, and she invested 3 times what he did, right? So imagine if over the next few years, if you were to set aside $10,000 a year or $15,000 a year, right, or eat into different people are going to tell you different things, and I like the word fiduciary, right, because that sounds like a funny word, but I'm not that. So you could figure out what works best for you. Certain people will tell you that it is paying for school so that you don't have student loans, right? Certain people will tell you it's investing. Certain people will tell you it's this or that. But if you do any of those things now, right, if you have less debt or more investments and savings, you are going to thank yourself in the long run for those. Because the way that compound interest works for investing, it works the same exact way for debt, right? Where the more debt you take out, the more you're paying on that debt and you're accruing compound debt, right? So the more that you do early, the more you are going to set yourself up for long-term success. Compound interest and time, right? A lot of people on this call aren't 25, right? Or there are people on this call that aren't even 20. And if you were to start making an impact on your future today, that is the biggest impact that you will ever make, right? So in a second, Yada's going to go through it. But to me, I would say that working during the semester is something that I wish I did as a representative. I made a mistake when I was younger where I was always working to replace, right? I was always working to like replace money that I was spending. I was never working to save or invest money, right? I never knew what it was like to get ahead because I kept building the same cycle of working to spend. And I only worked hard when I was broke. I don't know if anyone's ever felt like this, where for me, I would work hard over breaks to spend the money over the semester, to be broke to work hard over breaks, right? And I'm not gonna lie to you, that was a toxic cycle that I created for myself in my life that I had to outlearn after school. And what I would say is the mindset that I wish I had was I wish I worked during the school year so that I could pay for my expenses so that I could work over breaks to save and invest. Does that make sense? Right? Like, you know, my expenses weren't a ton when I was a student, maybe $150 a week. And if you think about it, as a rep, if you're at 30%, and Yada's going to go through some of these numbers in a second, but that means you sell $500 a week to pay for your expenses and you don't dip into your savings, right? And then you support yourself throughout the year so that you then get to a break where you can make thousands of dollars and invest a percentage of those, right? So imagine if over winter break you had a month off, right? And obviously in an ideal world, you're making more than you're spending throughout the semester. But even if you just sold 500 a week, you made 150 a week, you kept your expenses to that 150, then you don't touch your savings unless there's a big thing. And you're always working to get ahead, not to get back to that floor that you're at. And that was a mistake that I made, right? So how do you really set this up? Obviously, you continue to earn, right? You set up a budget, right? You actually create financial goals for yourself. You set up a withholding. So I'm going to show you guys something. One thing that I would say that I always try to be is I try to be very transparent. So there is something in the company called a withholding. And I personally have a withholding. In a second, you'll be able to see how much money I even have in there. So basically, as a manager or as a CSP, there is a way where the company gives managers or CSPs like a financial trader who will execute like our financial trades for us whenever we want. We could release money right from our withholdings to our Smith Barney investment account. So even when I was not a manager, I always had a withholding set up. Basically, the way that it works is there's different percentages you could set up, and it just withholds a percentage of your weekly paycheck, or however you want it to work. You could do bonuses, you could do weekly paycheck. And I remember at first I was like, well, I don't. So you basically you don't get interest on it. And I remember at first I was like, oh, but I don't get interest. And the reality is the biggest advantage to me was I was not very good at budgeting. And what I found is if the money is not in my bank account, it is way harder to spend it, right? And what I also found is when the money is in my bank account, I like spending money. I fucking love it. I'm not gonna lie to you. One of my most toxic trait is like literally I look for things to spend money on, especially like have you ever seen like those memes where it's like you get a paycheck and all of a sudden you become bougie, right? Like that's me. I'm like, where can I spend this money? So basically every, a few times a year, I release a bunch of funds into my Smith Barney investment firm. But if you go on Vector Connect, can everyone see my Vector Connect screen? Cool. So if you go on here, you could add for yourself type right? So for me, there's manager bonus withholdings or standard withholdings, and then you pick a percentage. And what happens? So right now I have 22,600 withheld in here that is not in my bank account, that is not yet in my investment portfolio, right? And what I usually do is a few times a year, I'll release like $25,000 or $20,000 into it, and I'll have that invested. But the cool thing is, if you ever need it, you click on it, right? You go release. How much do you want released? And then you submit, and it goes through on your next paycheck, right? And two things. One is if you ever need it sooner, you can go and you could call field services and ask them if they can put it through as a ACH, and they'll put it through, and it will go through in basically 2 business days. But one of the things that I've learned is that by having that extra step to spend that money, a lot of the times the things that I think are, I love to buy things. I do love to buy things. It is a toxic trait. And that was for a long time. I would work to have money to spend, and then I would be broke again. And then I would have to work to get money to spend. And so I have a certain percentage of everything that I earn that's withheld. Really, like, I've started setting financial goals in terms of, by the end of the year, I want over $150,000 to put down as a down payment for a house, not taking from my investments, from my Roth or any of those types of things. I want $150,000 cash saved. So having those financial goals, and to me, having a withholding was something that I like was important for me, because if the money wasn't in my bank account and I had to like go through the step of releasing it, a lot of the times I'd be like halfway there and I'd be like, I don't need a 4th computer. Like, I just don't need a 4th computer. Like, what was I doing? Why was I like, but if it was in my bank account, I saw that 4th computer on Amazon, I'd be like, fuck yeah, right? So to me, having that withholding and having that extra barrier to spending money is something that is very valuable, right? You can set one of those up, you cannot. One of the things that I actually heard that I very much appreciate is Tyler Parks. Some of you know who he is. He had a $76,000 push. He gave a talk. It was not on finances, but he was like, yeah, everyone told me that I needed to spend less money, right? And what I said to them is, no, I need to make more money because I like expensive things. And if that's you, hey, that can be you too. You should probably allocate a certain amount of your money towards those expensive things. But everyone can always, obviously, like, if you want more rewards for yourself, right? If you want that, and that's my mindset. I like going out and getting $100 steak every once in a while, right? And the more that you work, the more you afford yourself those opportunities. So I'm going to hand over to Yada, which I'm not going to lie, Yada, you're like completely frozen for me. Medium rare every time, 100%. We're going to see if Yada can give this talk. I'm going to mute.
Can you guys hear me?
It's echoing.
You're in
really
the twilight
loud.
zone, honey. You're echoing a lot.
Okay, he lied to me. Can you guys hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
am I like freezing?
Hi, you're good.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna share my screen. You guys have to let me know if I'm freezing because I'm on the Wi-Fi. Okay, can we see my screen? Cool.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about scheduling a little bit. And I know that Owen actually talked about this during the team meeting, but I saw in the forum that some people actually put scheduling under like what they want to learn in August. And I thought that our differences and experiences in scheduling could actually add value to you guys. I'm excited for this talk because scheduling has not only helped me gain success in the business, but outside of the business as well. So like I said, Owen and my relationship with scheduling was very different. So he mentioned on Wednesday that he wasn't very good at scheduling and planning. And I think that worked in my favor actually, because him not really being good at it made him have to get better at it. And he he found out how important it was. And when I went in for training, that was emphasized in my training. So right from the beginning, right when I started with Vector, I knew how important scheduling was. And honestly, I like planning a lot. I tell Owen this a lot and he makes fun of me, but I like planning a lot. And I like knowing what's going on, what I have to do, and what my week looks like. And I attribute that to good training from Vector. So I'm going to bring us back to the basics though, the things you guys learned in training, because I feel like a lot of us lost our way in scheduling. And I want to bring us back. Am I still good? Because it just said my internet is shaky.
Oh, you're still good. I can still hear you.
Okay, you guys are like frozen for me, but I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so I'm gonna bring you guys back to the basics, the things you learned in training. So like I said, I feel like a lot of us lost our way in scheduling, and I just want to bring you guys back into it. So you guys already know it's important, so I just want to show you how to do it. And this is my personal how I do it. So I have a couple of steps of scheduling and how I do it. So in my opinion, the first thing you have to do is you have to have your schedule in front of you. So if you don't have a planner, you should be printing one of the weekly schedules out every week that we give you guys, because just relying on Q to know when your demos are is going to cause you to not know when you have other things going on, and it'll be way harder to schedule. Then two, when you have your schedule in front of you, the first thing you should do is block off all the things you have going on for the week, whether it's school, family stuff, times you're hanging out with your boyfriend or girlfriend, clubs, whatever you have going on for that week, block off all of your non-negotiables, right? 3, know your goal and standard for how many demos you want to do that week. So don't just like look at all the times you have available and decide you're gonna do as many demos as you can book, unless you're trying to do a lot of demos. I won't tell you guys not to do that. But go into your week and into fall knowing about how many demos you want to complete on a week-to-week basis to feel accomplished with that week, and to just continue to make the money that you guys want to make. 4, decide when you want to do those demos. Based on your schedule, figure out when you're going to do your demos and put $signs in your schedule for those times. So this is something that I learned from Owen that I did regularly. I put the $signs in my schedule for the times that I wanted to do demos. And that not only held me accountable for those times, but it also was a quick indicator that when I was on the phone with someone trying to book a demo, just to look for those $signs. And that's when I was doing my demos. By the way, I would also decide what phone jams I want to go to that week as well. Like going to the team meeting is obviously a great time to phone, but if you only phone during the team meeting, you're gonna miss a ton of people that are busy at that time. And having a consistent phoning schedule means having consistent demos scheduled. So put the phone jam times that you wanna go to too in there. 5, like I said, this is the biggest one, fight for your goals. So don't just let things mess with your schedule. If you didn't book the demos you want to do during the team meeting, put a phone jam in your schedule, even if it's a personal phone jam. You can't just accept the things that happen to you if you're trying to have a strong fall. You need to fight for the results that you want. I'm gonna go way more into that. But I don't know if you guys remember this from training, but I ran this first talk of training this week. And so I was excited to say this, but someone who was really good at scheduling was Rob Brandt. And you guys have heard of Rob Brandt a little bit. He was a manager actually for this office. And he wasn't always the best rep in the world, but he was a really good rep. But the thing that made him the most money was his planner. And because he knew when he was working, he scheduled himself out very well in correlation to his goals and his consistency. So he sold $719,000, but his junior year of college, he took 20 credits a semester. He got a 3.7 GPA. He went on 13 trips that year, and he sold $198,000 as a junior in college. And he made half of that. So he made $99,000 as a junior in college. And the way he did that is by knowing when he was at work, what he was working towards, and being consistent. It's like almost that easy. It's almost that simple, right? And so as some of you know, in my experience, I started in May of 2019 as a senior at Morrisville High School. Some of you know it. And I basically started in the summer, but I worked through school my freshman year of college. And I know some of you guys are nervous about working during school. That's another reason I was excited about giving this talk. So my freshman year at Montclair State, I was taking about like 21 credits a semester. I was working in the office as an assistant manager, and I was selling, and I was doing demos. And I don't know if some of you guys know this, I also worked and still work another job for my dad, right? I finished with a 4.0 at the end of my first year of college. I sold $16,000 during the school year, which isn't like a lot in comparison to other people, but it's $16,000 I wouldn't have sold if I didn't schedule it correctly. And I was promoted, and I would not have been that successful if I didn't schedule and plan efficiently. So just like I said before, I sat down in the beginning of every week and I planned it out. I had my planner right in front of me and I blocked off my non-negotiables to start. So like my school time, my homework time, my family time, me time, and anything that was important to me then. And then after that, I decided how many demos I wanted to do for that week, keeping in mind my standard. By the way, I've heard some of you guys doing something similar when you've talked to Owen about this, but my standard for myself when I was in school was at least 5 demos a week. And having a standard for myself and having a plan allowed me to hit my goals while feeling good about it. So I wasn't stressing about when I was going to do stuff and how I was going to do it. So I decided when I wanted to do my demos for that week and I fought for it. So like I said before, it's not just about having a standard, it's about fighting for your goals and at least hitting your standard. So a lot of you know that the amount of demos you set up is not the amount of demos you're going to complete. I'm sure all of us are well aware of that. And people will try to cancel or reschedule, and your goals are going to be tested, right? So what you do is you fight to keep your schedule booked. So scheduling is not only about knowing when you're going to work, but also being ready to do what you have to do to hit your goals so you won't falter too far from your schedule and being able to stay consistent. So if one of my demos asked to reschedule, of course, like I would appreciate them coming to me, but what I would do is I would like let them know and I would explain to them how hard I was working to keep my schedule booked and all that I was doing, but also being ready, like to be able to hit my goals. I would tell them like, hey, I understand that you have this going on, but I really am trying to hit my goals. And to be able to hit my goals, I need to be able to complete the presentations I have set up. And so some of the time they would keep their demos with me to help me out, and other times they didn't. But I feel like something we're not strong at as a team is fighting for our demos. And I feel like we just accept reschedules as they come. So that's definitely something that I think we should be working on and need to get better at to be able to have a successful fall. And if the demo did reschedule or cancel, it wasn't like the end of the world, because I would book 7 to 8 demos a week. So I'd at least hit my minimum of 5 demos. And something else I want to mention is that like you should have the consistency of working. You should treat the job like a job. So if a demo cancels, you shouldn't just be like, oh, like, all right, well, let me go watch Netflix then, this demo canceled. You should work, right? Make calls, send emails, try to get more referrals. If you put in your schedule that you're working, even if your demo cancels, you should still be working, right? That's in your schedule, so work. And something that we've been talking about when we talk about the fall is 4-7-10. And some people will have a standard of 4 demos a week. Some will have a standard of 7 demos a week, and others will have a standard of 10 demos a week. Depending on your schedule is how they're going to look for the fall. So if you plan on having a standard of 7 demos a week, what your week could look like is having all of your non-negotiables in your calendar, having the TLA weekly call in there, the team meeting, and doing about 1 demo a day, right? And I know it sounds super simple when I say it like that, but it is super simple. Like if you follow the steps to schedule correctly, it's super simple to find the times that you're going to be doing the things you have to do and you're going to do. Where it gets harder is sticking to it and building the habits you need to build to set up a strong fall. And Owen said it before, but I am going to break down some numbers for you guys just so you guys could see like what's possible in the fall. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna break down some numbers for you super quick just to give you an example. So if you wanted to earn 1.5K in the fall, that would mean selling 5K. If you wanted to earn about 3K in the fall, that would mean selling about 10K, which is more or less a standard of 4 demos. And if you wanted to earn 5K in the fall, that would mean selling about 17K. And I added one, I said, if you wanted to earn 7K in the fall, that's a standard, that's selling 25K in a standard of 10 demos. And I'm gonna go more into this. So if you chose to have a standard of 4 demos a week with a 60% closing rate and a $250 average order, you would sell about 10K in the fall, which means that if you're at 30%, which a lot of us are, most of us are, you'll make about 3K during the fall, right? Which, by the way, if you do 4 demos a week and the TLA calls and the team meeting is about 8 hours of work a week. So to be able to accomplish that, you have to stick to your standard, which means booking more demos than you want to complete. I'd say like 6 if you want to complete 4 of them, and fighting for it and staying consistent. And there are obviously going to be some weeks that you have room to do more or have to do a little bit less because of what your schedule looks like. But if you don't have any standards, you're not going to be able to hit your goals at all. So standard of 7 demos, if you, with a 60% closing rate and a $250 average order, you would sell about 17K in the fall, which means that if you're at 30% commission, you'll make about 5K during the fall. Which, by the way, if you do 7 demos, like I said, a week, and the TLA calls and the team meeting is about like 11 hours of work a week. And if you chose to have a standard of 10 demos a week and a 60% closing rate and $250 average order, you would sell about 24K in the fall, which means that if you're at 30% commission, you'll make about 7K during the fall. Which, by the way, if you do 10 demos a week and the TLA calls and the team meeting and like a phone jam here or there, is about 14 to 15 hours of work a week, which doesn't sound like a lot with all we have going on for the fall. We could definitely squeeze that in. And like I said before, I'm going to wrap up because we are running like low on time. But if you don't schedule your time in a way that allows you to get everything that you want done in the week done, you'll continue to feel like you don't have enough time for certain things. So for me, I didn't plan my week and how productive. If I didn't plan my week and like how productive I wanted to be, I would always feel like I could have done more. And having my schedule with everything I was going to do that week and actually doing it, I felt accomplished at the end of the week, and that allowed me to hit my goals. And honestly, it was a game changer for me working through school. So I hope you guys get at least something from this talk and start to do some of these things so that you have the fall that you also want to have.
Thank you. Let's give it up for Yada. All right. So can you guys hear me? Sean just made me like super nervous. He said that I'm frozen. Am I frozen?
You're good, Owen.
You sound fine.
All right, I appreciate you guys. All right, so because of like the Wi-Fi issues in the office and being a little behind, and then Lili's new apartment and not having Wi-Fi yet, my goal is going to be to get everyone out about 10 minutes early, and Lili's going to run her resume workshop on the Friday call. So if you don't have the Friday at 4 call in your planner, I mean, I know a lot of people here might not have planners yet, but hopefully we do. So I would definitely put that in. But am I sharing my screen where it says get involved in building this division? Cool. All right. So I'm going to hit on some of the things that I said earlier and hopefully ask some questions to help you think. But really my goal is for you to realize the opportunity that you have to help build this division. Right. It is a brand new division, which means that there is endless opportunity. And one thing I want you to think about is imagine if everyone here developed the mindset of, I'm going to make an impact in this division becoming one of the best in the company. Right. Imagine if everyone here made a decision to take their office's success and the divisional success personally. Right. How much would we grow and how much would you grow and learn? Right? What could you impact and what could your impact be? Right? How much of a legacy can you leave? That's like the reason I really love the legacy division as a name, is because to me, that's what life is, right? It's about the impact that you leave on the people around you and what you are remembered for, right? Like what if you really wanted to help us grow our social media, right? You made sure that you followed our accounts and you gave us ideas and perspective. Right? You helped us figure out better ways to build our brand. What if everyone made a video on their favorite part of the job or what you learned, right? Like what could we create brand wise and how could we better market ourselves, right? What if everyone looked for ways to help us get better as a team, right? What if you looked at things through the lens of a leader and brought ideas to the table, right? You looked at it for ways that for things that you could create or run yourself or take ownership or help us elevate, right? What if everyone took pride in being a team builder and getting the right people on the team and realized that your influence of what you can do in terms of our success is limitless. And you have the potential to change a few people's lives, right? What if you thought about the talents and the abilities that you bring to the table in terms of like little projects that you would want to take ownership of, or roles that you would want, or responsibility that you could take the lead on and have ownership of, right? You guys have such a unique opportunity because you're on the ground floor of something completely new, and you have the opportunity of being the reason that we create something unique and amazing and change the company's landscape. There is no better time to be a part of the company and no better situation to be in, right? Really, over the next few years, this is going to be the next level of Vector, right? One of the things that I was preaching when everything happened and we had to switch to all virtual is I kept saying to the staff, it's like, hey, this could potentially impact some of our short-term sales and income, But in the long term, what it's going to create is it's going to create so many new systems. And right now, not only do you have the opportunity of elevating our division, but we have the opportunity of shifting the landscape of a company that's been around for so long and has done so much, right? And we have the opportunity of ushering that new age of Vector, right? So my question for you is, what does it look like to make an impact and leave a legacy? Right? And that's something I want everyone to think about for a second. What does that look like? What does it feel like? And what is the difference that you will make? Right? Imagine if everyone here, I'm going to say it over and over again, but what if everyone here played their part, right? And took a little piece of themselves and figured out ways to make that impact? Like, what if everyone, it took that personal accountability and that ownership of making us better, right? How many people could be impacted? So because of the circumstances, and I don't think anyone's going to be upset about this, we're going to finish early. I'm going to stay on if anyone has any ideas or questions or anything. But my assignments are, one, post your top takeaway from today in the divisional TLA group me. Text your manager with your thoughts after the event and what ideas you have and that you'd be excited about. And then think about your growth plan so that we can map out what that looks like next Friday at 4 for our first weekly call. So I'm sorry we had so many technical problems. I literally have no clue. I guess Murphy's Law, right? If whatever can go wrong, will go wrong. But I'm going to be on for a little bit for any questions that we have. If you want to hop off, you absolutely can. But I'll give everyone a couple minutes to do those things. And if you have any questions, just let me know.